one intentional change and one unintentional change in today's video. First, you probably noticed that the image is kind of tilted. My camera on my phone thought that I wanted it at the other angle, and so recorded it sideways, but as you can see here, it doesn't affect what you see too much, except that, it's not widescreen today, so sorry about that. The second thing you probably noticed is that when I started painting, there was already some painting done. In an effort to keep down the size of the videos, I did the armor and the cape, the two things that are just one solid color for the most part, did kind of like that base coat before, and then let that dry so I could do some detail work on the video here. We're doing another of the Wildspire figures. This one is sort of a paladin. Wildspire calls this the Halfling Paladin. That's what they're calling this. And it is a little bit smaller of a little shorter of a mini. So yeah, Halfling, and it does look like Paladin. I'm kind of doing it as a Dark Knight kind of thing, not necessarily evil, just black armor, which I mixed my darkest metallic, which was a sort of a metallic silver, just with black to get that shade, get that kind of shiny black color, and did a red cape. And thinking about this guy, I've always had this idea of kind of doing Fallen Paladin, but an asymmetric story for that guy would be something to the effect of that he grew up as being seen as a blessing in his community. Everyone expected him to become a paladin, and so he did it out of obligation and didn't really like that idea. So eventually he became the paladin and eventually renounced his oath or fell, something to that effect. And so sort of a mismatch between the race, the asymmetric, and the class of fallen paladin. So it kind of had that idea for playing a paladin at some point. With this guy, it's really straightforward for the most part. The armor is mostly just a solid black color, and I went with a red cape. Playing this idea for this guy is to have him, with the stance he's in, very combat oriented. Wanted to show his armor is dirty and worn in. So I like the way that the cape came out. Kind of, the colors were a little bit not as uniform as you would expect, and that was fine. And then I did this on top of the black armor. I made sort of a rusty color, a reddish, dry color that could look like either dirt or aging or blood stains on the armor. So I put that on. You can't see too much in this video, but close up you do get some of that. Did contrast with yellow hair, make that nice bright color so it pops, and then wanted to have again something to show where the eye slits were. So I did again the yellow, just to show that. Got a little bit on the outside, just kind of pulled that off, and again to show that he's really done a lot of adventuring. He's been using his weapons a lot and done things a lot. I'm here in a minute going to put a little bit of color on on the blade of that sword or spear. It's an interesting weapon. The handle's longer than the blade, so it kind of looks like a spear, but some sort of pull on. Yeah, so I use some of that same red, rusty color to show that the sword's been in use. Maybe it needs to get some of that off, so it can look like bloodstain or just like it needs to have some little more upkeep. And I'm going to go ahead and here in just a minute put a little bit of, the base is always hard. just because I can't hold it while I'm doing that painting. At least not too well if I have any paint anywhere else that's not totally dry. I can't hold it by the top. So usually what I've tried to do is to do usually just a lighter kind of gray on the ground, and then once it dries, go for another shade of gray, usually a little bit darker, and just sort of do a dry wash that way. Usually that helps the cracks in the ground stand out. Um, Next time I buy supplies for this, I'm going to try and get some, uh, maybe a wash to see if I can get that in the cracks and really bring in some shadow and get some distinction there. So that doesn't show up a whole lot right here. So get that darker shade on top, on the ground there. But yeah, this one was, again, some of these have been, these last couple that were not, that were more of the armored, were a little bit more straightforward since the color palette was not as, it didn't need to be as varied, just with the main, the armor being for the most part a solid color. I did here want to change that a little bit since it does look like he's wearing some sort of tabard or skirt over the legs as well. So I did make a little bit of a magenta to kind of put some color up on the top. Maybe he had some other markings on there before this paladin fell and became a fallen paladin, an oathbreaker. So maybe some of that's been smudged off or removed. It's just those smudges left on the armor on there. Whatever coloring was once on there from his old life as a more honorable paladin before he fell from grace. There you go.